Babes in Spyland. The Truth Hurts. Episode 6. Despite the dire situation, Agent Smith felt herself grinning as they rocketed north on the freeway. Lights turning and siren blaring, the other cars practically ran into each other, trying to get out of the way. How much farther? Agent Milkshakes asked, swerving around a truck that she deemed too slow. The tires moved over the rumble strip and flipped a few pieces of gravel before she got them back into the fast lane. Agent Smith looked down at the tracking app in the console. A mile. Someone, Milkshake's suspected Agent Black Turtle, had programmed the voice that gave directions to sound like a dying goat, so she'd turned it off. A yellow dot represented them, moving fast and going north. A blue dot showed the approximate location where Lucy had dropped Sci-5 off, and a red dot sat in the spot where Sci-5 had called Rob Harker. It's right around the next bend. Got it. Their SUV cut between cars and spaces that Agent Smith was sure no vehicle would fit in, but Agent Milkshakes was always in control. Less than a quarter of a mile, Agent Smith reported. Hold on! Agent Milkshake's lips pulled into a wicked grin as she moved onto the shoulder. I've been wanting to try this for a while. She reached for the side of the steering wheel and flipped a switch. The vehicle didn't so much slow down as it seemed to smack into an invisible wall. 1 second they were moving, and the next they had stopped. Agent Smith braced for the airbags to go off, or the pain from the seatbelt trying to cut her in half. Instead, it felt like a giant hand made of pillows kept her in her seat. A gentle thud sounded as a candle they'd apparently missed from Sci-Fi's sister rolled under the seat and hit below Agent Smith's feet. Dirt billowed around them as traffic flew past, people gawking and trying not to hit their neighbors. I didn't know company-issued SUVs could do that. While it had been fun, Agent Smith wasn't sure it was entirely safe. She also wondered if Milkshakes always tried stunts like this, or if she saved it for the newbies. I heard the tech guys bragging about it. Agent Milkshakes patted the dashboard affectionately. Stop on a dime or something. I wanted to try it out. Did we go too far? Agent Smith glanced at her phone. Nope, we're about 20 yards shy. Perfect. Milkshakes threw the SUV into park and turned off the engine. Let's go see what we can find. After 2 days, there wasn't much left. They spotted several sets of tire tracks and decided that the peel-out trail was probably Lucy's. Agent Smith gave the ground a thorough search and finally found the faint imprint from a bare foot leading from the edge of the road into the grass. Good thing it hasn't rained, Agent Smith said, pointing. How did you find that? Milkshakes raised her eyebrows. I was in Australia once with my dad for a business conference. A local took pity on me. I was all of 10, and offered to teach me how to live out in the bush. So I spent a week learning how not to die. She smiled at the memory of the man showing her how to best kill large spiders. I have several questions, Milkshakes said. Later. Agent Smith held up her phone. The red dot is over that way, probably that gas station or the McDonald's. I can follow these if you want to go around. Agent Milkshakes studied the buildings beyond the fence. Okay, I'll meet you on the other side. Be there in 5. To some, the pencil skirt and high heels may have been a deterrent, but Agent Smith didn't even notice. She moved to the edge of the gravel and, after a brief search, picked up Sci-Fi's trail. Sci-Fi likely didn't spend much time outdoors, or barefoot, because he had stuck to the areas with more dirt and less prickly, scratchy grass and weeds. He must have walked on tiptoe, because the prints from the balls of his feet were easy to follow. The trail headed directly toward the cluster of buildings. She followed it, searching the ground for anything interesting, but only found more footprints and a torn piece of plaid fabric flapping from a hole in the chain-link fence. She snagged the edge of it with the tips of her fingers and wiggled her way through the gap. Here his prints continued until the dirt faded into asphalt. 2 days, she said, shaking her head. They'd never find anything in a busy parking lot now. What did Lucy say she dropped him off with? His little notebook, his shirt, and his phone? How Lucy had convinced Sci-Fi to get into a car without his pants on was a mystery she'd rather leave unsolved. However, after just 5 minutes with Lucy, Agent Smith had no doubt that Sci-Fi had arrived sans trousers. Where was the closest place to hide? Just as she decided that the back of the gas station was the answer, Agent Milkshakes drove around the corner of the building. Agent Smith jogged forward, waving. The window rolled down. Red Dot says he was here, Milkshakes said, pointing at the gas station. Nothing between the freeway and the parking lot except this scrap of cloth. Agent Smith held up the foot-long ribbon of plaid. Got a bag? Yeah. Milkshakes put the car into park and leaned over to pull a plastic bag, decorated with cartoon characters, out of the glove box. She handed it over, and Agent Smith put the evidence inside. At least, she hoped it was evidence. Considering he was scantily clad, I'm betting he went into the bathroom, Agent Smith said. You're probably right. How should we play this? She asked as Milkshakes got out of the vehicle. We go talk to the manager. Milkshakes eyed Agent Smith. If it's a guy and he isn't being cooperative, you can use your womanly charms on him. You could use your womanly charms, Agent Smith pointed out as they walked around to the front of the building. Milkshakes shrugged. Depends on the guy. Black Turtle seems to dig your show. What? I'm just saying. Milkshakes furrowed her brow, shook her head, and gave Agent Smith a half-hearted glare. They got to the door and went inside, the tinkle of a bell announcing their arrival. A bored, 20-something woman raised her eyes from her phone for a split second before gravity got the upper hand, and they lowered back to the screen. The two agents walked over to the counter. Agent Smith took in the scene. Candy, snacks, energy drinks, displays for mediocre chocolates, and, likely, 2-day-old donuts. The attendant didn't look up again until Milkshakes cleared her throat. Can I help you? The woman asked, only sparing a glance before returning her attention to her phone. Agent Smith was sure she could hear Milkshakes grinding her teeth. Is your manager here? That, at least, provoked more prolonged eye contact from the attendant. Is there a problem? We need to speak with your manager. Agent Milkshakes pulled her badge from her pocket and set it on the counter. The effects of a shiny law enforcement shield were almost always instantaneous. The woman swallowed, glanced at both agents, clutched her phone to her chest, and stepped back. I'll go get him. She scurried away, yelling, Brad! I hate teenagers. Milkshakes rubbed the bridge of her nose. You think she's that young? She is in spirit. A moment later, a man with long blonde hair, wearing mostly clean jeans and a green polo shirt, followed the rambling girl back to the desk. She has a badge, and they said they wanted to talk to you. The woman pointed an accusing finger. He gave them a slow blink and then a yawn. Which wasn't nice. Those things were contagious. Agent Smith repressed the urge to follow suit, taking a deep breath, but refusing to open her mouth. Once the man's lips were resealed, he shook his head. Sorry about that. It's been a long couple of days. His eyes did the up-down on Agent Smith, but turned to Milkshakes. Maybe because she still had her shiny badge in one hand, or maybe he was into more casual girls. What can I do for you? A couple of things. Milkshakes gave the man a small smile. We're investigating a missing persons report, and we need to speak with whomever was working Tuesday between noon and 4 p.m. She held up a finger to delay the man's response. And we need to have a few minutes in your men's bathroom. Agent Smith stopped herself from wrinkling her nose. Guess which duty she was about to get. The men's bathroom? The manager asked. Yes, we know he made a phone call while in this building, and we assume he was in the restroom. Agent Milkshakes kept smiling. Are you sure you want to go in there? The man asked. Agent Smith stepped over to the woman and linked arms. Can she show me the bathrooms? She smiled. Where's the key? Before anyone could stop them, the woman pointed. Agent Smith snatched a key off the hook and then led the way outside. Am I in trouble? The woman asked. No. Agent Smith shook her head. Were you working on Tuesday? No, she swallowed. But I'm supposed to take out the garbage and I haven't done it since Monday. Despite the disgusting nature of the proposition of looking through 4-day-old garbage in a men's room, Agent Smith silently thanked the woman for her incompetence. If Sci-Fi left anything of interest, it would probably still be there. Their steps crunched along the gravel-strewn path, and when they got around the side of the building to the door, Agent Smith raised her hand and knocked. There was no answer. I'm going to investigate, Agent Smith said slowly, watching the woman. Will you please wait out here and make sure no one interrupts me? The woman nodded, her texting fingers already twitching. No doubt to tell her friends all about the police in the station. Good. Agent Smith steeled herself, unlocked the door, and entered. The first thing to remember about any convenience store restroom is that it will smell, and not in a nice way. No amount of cheap air freshener can cover up the stench of hundreds of people a day going about their business in such a confined area. And there's something about a good road trip that brings on intestinal upheaval with a vengeance. Second thing to remember, men are pigs. Is it too much to ask to get the pee in the toilet and the paper off the floor? Agent Smith wrinkled her nose at the scent as well as the state of the room. May as well just put a splash guard in here. The urge to yawn came again. Cursed Manager Brad. Probably because she was trying to hold her breath, but she suppressed it. Before she could change her mind, she pulled the door shut. Both the light and the fan came on. Neither did much to improve the situation. So he ran in here and called his friend, she said to herself, checking off the items in the small space. Toilet, which she didn't spend too much time looking at. Toilet paper dispenser, a big one, which made sense because then the attendants wouldn't have to change it as often. A short garbage can next to the toilet, a sink bolted to the wall with a cracked mirror above it, and a paper towel dispenser located next to the door over another garbage can. Oh, and don't forget the condom dispenser. 2 garbage cans and nothing else of interest in the place. He ran in here to hide, he called his friend, probably used the toilet, washed his hands, and waited? She swallowed. He'd torn the shirt on the fence. If someone had brought him another one, what was left of his original garment could be here. Her eyes drifted to the large garbage can. Really? She asked the empty room, scowling. But she'd long ago learned not to bother arguing with common sense or inanimate objects. She took a breath and used the toe of her shoe to hook the short can and pull it over. It hit the stained cream tiles with a thump and spilled its contents in a poof of trash and a cloud of aroma. Mostly toilet paper, some paper towels, candy wrappers, fast food containers, and a few items she didn't want to think about. Before she could talk herself out of it, she did the same to the other can. This one stood next to the door, and wadded paper towels spilled out, bouncing across the floor and into the corners of the room. Then she spotted it. A small corner of fabric was still stuck inside the can. Of course. She squatted down and nimbly reached in to retrieve the plaid-patterned sleeve. Maybe it was the act of bending over, or maybe Brad, the manager, just needed to be smacked. But the urge to yawn finally prevailed, and before she could stop it, she inhaled. Deeply. It was one thing to smell the room, but quite another to taste it. Mixed with the usual damp paper and urine smell came a not-so-unpleasant scent that she couldn't identify. Against her better judgment, she took another inhale and closed her eyes. Musky vanilla. Her stomach did a little flip-flop, and she suddenly wanted a pair of strong arms around her. Agent Smith's eyes shot open. What in the... The door bowed, and the air vibrated under a hail of knocking. Hey! Agent Smith jumped, her heart suddenly pounding, and drew her weapon. The assault continued. Anybody in there? What had happened to her guard? Agent Smith moved to the door and yanked it open. She hadn't meant to point her gun at him, but he'd startled her, and muscle memory took over. His stained overalls and rumpled hair, along with the bags under his eyes, told Agent Smith that he was probably a big rig driver. He leaned away from her, and at that moment, for reasons that were entirely illogical, Agent Smith decided the man was kind of cute.